Our special guest today is Colonel Alan West. He served in Iraq, awarded the Bronze Star. He also was a member of the United States Congress. Colonel, welcome aboard.
Thanks so much for having me on, Phil. How are you doing?
Oh, great. Thank you so much. You know, I'm going to ask your take on the Putin invading Iraq and also, about his actions. Ukraine, and will his actions be reversible? But first, I want you to listen to this, if you will, for just one moment. I've got a cut that I think you'll enjoy here.
The president's main problem is he just simply doesn't care about American national security issues. He doesn't focus on it. He has said back in the 2008 campaign that his priority was transforming American society, and that's what he's up to. So in 2008, NATO made a terrible mistake when the Europeans rejected our proposal to have Ukraine and Georgia join NATO. And for 5 years thereafter, during the 5 years of Obama's presidency, he has simply not focused on Ukraine or the other former republics of the Soviet Union. He thinks that the reset button with Russia worked. He believes we have common interest with Russia in Syria, that we have common interest with Russia in Ukraine. We absolutely do not. And as long as he thinks that, he's going to get pushed around, which is what's happening now. But I agree with Secretary Rumsfeld. This is not a problem of today. It's not a problem of what Obama didn't do on Friday or what he's not going to do tomorrow. It's a problem of having 5 years of no thinking about what America's interests are. When the crisis hits, your options are very limited.
That's Ambassador Bolton. Your take on that? I thought it was very interesting.
No, he was spot on,
right.
Because foreign policy has to be proactive and not reactive. And as he said, once you get into a crisis, your options are limited, and that's where we find ourselves. And we have a president that is really more so concerned about expanding the welfare nanny state and the dependency society than he is with the most important priority of the federal government, and that is providing for the common defense. So at the beginning of the week, when Secretary of Defense Hagel came out and made his announcement about how the administration is going to decimate the military and reduce its capability and capacity, by the end of the week, Vladimir Putin had invaded a sovereign nation and taken over the Crimean Peninsula. And he is not done yet. And we have not seen any forthright response from the president, who is sitting around, making 90 and 60-minute phone calls to Vladimir Putin, which that's not going to get you anywhere. That you're bargaining from a position of weakness. If you want to talk to Vladimir Putin, it's a 5-minute conversation. You make 2 or 3 points, and you hang up on it.
And this next statement by the president just stunned me.
The way that some of this has been reported, that the suggestion somehow that the Russian actions have been clever strategically. I actually think that this has not been a sign of strength, but rather is a reflection that countries near Russia have deep concerns and suspicions about this kind of meddling, and if anything, it will push many countries further away from Russia.
No strategic. What's your comment on that?
Well, only in Obama's world would he see an invasion of a sovereign country as a symbol of weakness. You don't do that, and it was a bold strategic move coming off of the Olympics, and no one was paying attention, which is just, horrible to believe. This was something that was not planned over the past couple of days. This is something that was really in play for quite some time. And Vladimir Putin has said, that his biggest disappointment in the 20th century was the collapse of the Soviet Union. And we continue to hear him talk about, quote-unquote, protecting ethnic Russians. So that lets you know that he's looking for that power grab wherever he believes there's an interest of protecting the ethnic Russians all along. Those are former Soviet Union states that are independent now. And if I'm in the Baltic states, I'm worried. If I'm in Belarus, I'm worried.
Mm-hmm.
The rest of Ukraine needs to be worried. He's not done. He's just kind of taking a pause-ex, as we say in the military, before he moves on to, phase 2 of his operation. And we are not seeing a response from the president. What we're seeing is him trying to wish it away because he does not want to make a decision. I mean, he's voting present once again.
Now, what's your take on Putin, his actions? Reversible, not reversible?
Well, I mean, it is not reversible. Putin is not going to pick up and all of a sudden leave the Crimean Peninsula. That's just not going to happen. So basically, he has invaded the sovereign country and taken over their territory. He has gone in and taken over, Ukrainian military bases. I mean, this is preposterous. This is insane what he has done, and yet we are not seeing any type of strategic repositioning of American military forces on the ground to conduct military-to-military actions with Poland. We have not heard President Obama talk about reinstating the missile defense shield that he rejected in 2009. What about an emergency session to look at expanding NATO to these countries, which we should have previously done with the Ukraine and Georgia? So, again, we are telegraphing weakness. And the other country that no one is talking about that's paying attention to this is China. And we know that they've already made incursions to the South China Sea. They've taken over the Japanese territory of the Senkaku Island.
And I'm going to switch for a moment here. I want to go to, because I want to ask you also about your fellow congressman, Cummings, and the IRS. Everybody saw the mic was shut off on him. But I want to play this little cut and get your take on this.
Based upon everything I've seen, the case is solved. And if it were me, I would wrap this case up and move on.
How can he say that?
Well, he has to say that because he's a partisan, liberal, progressive, socialist politician. And he has to do the cover for the President of the United States because we know that nothing's going to happen in the Senate. They're not going to look into this. So the only place it can be looked into is on the House side. And he has to do everything possible to, again, put up the smoke screen so that people aren't looking. And Chairman Issa made a horrible decision to cut off his mic because guess what? We're not talking about Lois Lerner. We're not talking about the emails that she was a part of that really is damning evidence. We're not talking about a contempt of Congress. We're talking about Chairman Issa being a racist. We're talking about shutting off microphones. We're talking about everything that is really not important. And so, again, we have to understand the optics, and we have to understand the unintended consequences or the second or third order effects of the decisions that were made in that hearing. I would have let Elijah Cummings talk till the cows came home because all he would have done was just really tie himself up in a knot and do what liberals always do. They run their mouths and they confuse people, and they really come off as being very partisan. It's just the same as the soundbite that you just said. But instead, we're not talking about that. We're talking about Chairman Issa cutting off the microphone.
And I totally agree with you, Colonel. We're talking with Colonel Alan West. And the other night, I caught you on Greta's program, and the New York Times. I couldn't believe the coverage that New York Times was giving this president. Let me play this clip.
We see the New York Times once again trying to run cover for the president, and go back to in December when you had the New York Times writer who came out and said it is true that everything that happened in Benghazi was because of an anti-Islamic video and this was not a terrorist attack. And all of a sudden, you once again threw fire back on, maybe the simmering embers of this whole thing in Benghazi because everyone brought the facts up. Now, again, everyone is going to come back and start focusing on what the president said, the 2013 lie of the year, the fact that he got 3 of the top 6 Pinocchio awards from the Washington Post. So why would the New York Times do something like this and bring the negative attention to a time when the president doesn't need it?
That was beautiful. I mean, it's got to drive you nuts. I know it drives me nuts.
Well, but the New York Times, these people are not really that smart, Phil. And so what they think they're doing is helping the president when actually, like I said, they're just throwing gasoline on some simmering embers, and now you got a raging fire once again instead of just, letting this go.
Colonel Alan West, he's our guest. He served in Iraq, awarded the Bronze Star. He was a United States congressman. He's a real man's man, a hero, and we are so delighted to have him aboard. Colonel,
Bill.
I get a little upset because it seems like, and I've been dying to ask you this, it seems like every black or liberal commentator, like Bill Maher, for example, or Juan Williams, regardless if we're talking about Benghazi or Obamacare or whatever Obama positions are, if you engage them, the first thing they start talking is, you're a racist. Now listen to Bill Maher.
Our origin of the Tea Party? What happened? What was the origin of the Tea Party 5 years ago? It wasn't about bailouts.
Sure, it was.
It was not. It was about a mortgage bill, and then it was about Obamacare.
Well, it was
and then
about
it was about the stimulus.
It was about a black president. But let's
that's bull. That is
really
total bull. That's bull. You think tens of millions of people just out there think?
Well, it happened.
Even you don't believe that. You're just saying that.
I totally believe
really?
that. Well, it happened a month after he took office. Suddenly, white people were very upset about debt, even though Bush had raised the debt way more than Obama had.
Bill Kristol got outraged. He should have been as outraged as I was. Give me your comment on that.
Well, first of all, Bill Maher is just, touting the liberal progressive talking point, and their last line of defense is to always call you a racist or say it's racism. President Bush did not create more debt than Barack Obama. And let's be very honest, people were very upset with President Bush about his overspending. They were very upset about the troubled asset relief program that we knew as TARP and bailouts and things of that nature. So for Bill Maher to sit up there and act like all of a sudden people, became fiscally responsible because a quote-unquote black president came about, that's just a lie, and he knows that. And as Bill Kristol said, he doesn't really believe that. He just wants to have that sensational talking point. The president is a failure. That's all it is. And so I guess when you look at these poll numbers to say he only has a 38% approval rating, then that means 62% of this country is racist. I mean, this is just insidious. But the bottom line is that they have to have something to fall back on. And look, why do you think they want to run Hillary Clinton? Because if you say something against Hillary Clinton, then you're misogynist and you're sexist. If you don't want to see the first woman president, then you have something against her. Look at the failure of this reset with Russia, this stupid little button toy that she gave Sergei Lavrov. Look at what happened on her watch. We lost an American ambassador, the first time that's happened since Jimmy Carter, which, this administration is definitely worse than Jimmy Carter's administration. But if you bring up those points, does that mean that I'm a sexist? No, that's just the truth. So, Bill Kristol was absolutely right in calling out Bill Maher about what he said. And, Bill Kristol is normally a very quiet, easygoing guy. But, I think that America is tired of, being told that you can't say anything about President Obama. You just have to sit back and allow him to use his pen and use his phone to, as he said, fundamentally transform the United States of America, which means to wreck this country.
And you just set up my next segue talking about Hillary. Here's Juan Williams. This drove me nuts.
Well, I think Republicans have their eyes on this as being something they can use against Hillary Clinton in a presidential race.
Does it stick?
But no, it doesn't stick. I mean, look, there's no, in this report, tough as Steve says it was, there's no evidence of a cover-up of any kind. In fact, it says there's badly positioned military jets, bad intelligence, bad communications, but there's no cover-up. There's no stand down, don't respond, nothing like that.
You're right. You can't argue with them. When they have, you can't argue with these people.
No, you're right. And truth, for liberals is just a very bad obstacle. And really, it's kind of like sunlight and garlic to a vampire. But when you think about it, there is a cover-up there in Benghazi. And if this was a Republican administration and it was Speaker of the House Nancy Pelosi and the liberal media, they'd be going crazy right now as far as Benghazi. If the president really did tell the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff and the Secretary of Defense to make sure that these individuals under attack got all the resources that they needed, then they would have gotten all the resources that they needed. Somewhere, somehow, either the president did not say that as he went on to bed because he had fundraisers in Las Vegas and Colorado the next day, or, someone said, don't do it. That's just the bottom line. There were assets that were available. They were hung up. But then, why did Secretary of State Hillary Clinton deny the request for additional security coming from Ambassador Chris Stevens?
Mm-hmm.
And, why would she come out and talk about an anti-Islamic video? We know within hours that was not the case. This was not some type of spontaneous demonstration. I've been in combat. You don't bring AK-47s, RPGs, and precision-directed mortars to a spontaneous demonstration. I think John McCain said that. And the lies continue to be promulgated weeks after we knew what the real truth is. So there was something that was going on in Benghazi. I believe it was a gun-running operation using the CIA and the State Department. I believe that this gun-running operation was trying to funnel weapons that we had provided to radical Islamists in Libya to take it from there to Turkey, and then from Turkey down to the radical Islamists in Syria. So something happened in Benghazi, I think, that makes Iran-Contra look like romper room, and that's why we need to have a select committee to get to the bottom of this with subpoena power.
And Colonel, with just 2 minutes left here, I've got to ask you, how did the GOP lose the African community? What do they do to get it back? And would you ever think of throwing your hat in the race? We'd love to have you in the race.
Well, the problem with the GOP, they forgot what GOP stood for. It stands for growth, opportunity, and prosperity. They forgot the number one reason why the Republican Party was established was to break the physical chains of slavery and to make sure that the words of Jefferson, that we hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal and they are endowed by certain inalienable rights from the Creator of life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness. That's what the Republican Party was established for, was for liberty and freedom. And they stopped taking their message to the black community. They allowed the Democrats to take their message and to really create an environment of economic slavery for the black community. Now, you look at the crumbling inner cities, you look at the failures of the black family. So the Republican Party just once again needs to go back to their conservative roots. The black community is conservative at heart, and take that message to the black community.
God, we got so much to talk to you, but I mean, love to have you on for 3 straight hours. We got to get you back here. We got so much to talk about. And
be happy to be back.
You're so good. We will. And we just got about 40 seconds. What's your message to the folks listening?
The message to the people that are listening is the American people need to come to a recognition of what type of country they want to have for themselves and what do they want to pass on to their children and grandchildren. Right now we are sending the wrong message, and that we are allowing politicians and self-serving individuals to be the ones that are in positions of being in charge in our country. We have got to get back to the fundamentals of our Constitution, of a constitutional republic, and also make sure we have citizen servants and not self-serving politicians. And when the American people wake up and make the decision that they want good governance and they just don't want to be told what they want to hear and they don't want a welfare nanny state, then the greatest days of the greatest nation will once again return.
And Colonel, sir, it's been an honor, and thank you so much, and thank you for your service, sir.
Thank you, Phil, and all the best to you.
Thank you.